The last daily narrow gauge passenger train, the San Juan Express, is retired by Denver and Rio Grande Western Railway. The 22nd Amendment to the Constitution is ratified, limiting presidents to 2 terms, and Hank Ketchum's best-selling comic strip Dennis the Menace appears in newspapers across America for the very first time. The year is 1951, and this compact car was a product of the federal government loan that had specific parameters, the Kaiser Henry J. But before getting into all of it, I'm your host, Jay. Welcome to What It's Like, the automotive channel that covers cars of yesteryear. The goal is to cover all American cars from 1930 through 1964, and of course cars outside of those parameters, but the hunk of the material is 1930 through 1964. Think of it like the Richard M. Langworth visual version of the Book of Collectible Cars, just way more in depth, and you get to see these cars like you've never seen them before. We dive in deep with history, specs, design. If any of that sounds of interest to you, subscribe and hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. Real quick before diving in deep on this one, I want to bring back a segment that we tried to do earlier this year called Part of the Conversation. If you're in the automotive sector, I don't care if you're a dealer, I don't care if you're a YouTuber, I don't care if you're an automotive critic or whatever, reach out to me. We'll do an interview, like Joe Rogan style, just a conversation. And whoever, will do it live, and whoever's in the comment section could be part of the conversation. All right, 1951 Kaiser model lineup. But before getting into all of that, Kaiser was a company founded by Henry J. Kaiser, who made his money in industry. His company built Liberty ships during World War II, and one of his companies was responsible for building the Hoover Dam, Kaiser Steel. Some people in comments from previous said that he had more money than God, and that's kind of an obtuse statement, considering that God can just create more gold. Anyway, I digress. Kaiser would team up with Joseph Frazier, who was CEO of Graham Page. They would build their cars at Willow Run. Joe Frazier would leave the company in 1951. Kaiser would build cars from 1946 through 1955 in America, building close to 760,000 cars during that time. In 1953, Kaiser would create a holding company which would acquire Willis passenger cars and Jeep. Kaiser and Willis would produce passenger cars in the United States until 1955, and then they would move production to Argentina. Jeep production continued in Toledo, Ohio after 1955. The company would change their name to Kaiser Jeep in 1963 and would be bought by AMC in 1970. 1951 Kaiser model lineup was broken down into both Frazier models and Kaiser models. Frazier, 1951 was the last year for Frazier models. Frazier had the Vagabond, which was their 4-door sedan utility that I guess Joe Diffie just never heard of because it's a car with a tailgate. It might even be the very first hatchback. Standard and Manhattan. Kaiser was offered in Special and Deluxe, as well as Henry J. It's also worth pointing out that Kaiser had a hatchback Vagabond model of their very own. Kaiser would offer the Henry J for 4 years, 51, 52, 53, and 54. The Henry J was named after Henry J. Kaiser and was to be a car built for the masses. Think Ford Model T, but in the 50s. Introduced to the public on September 28, 1950, 2 days before the government deadline. This car was built with federal government loan. That came with parameters. The design needed to be able to carry 5 adults, could hold 50 miles per hour on the road. It could cost no more than $1,300 projected price, and it had to be ready to sell by September 30th of 1950. Howard Dutch Darren, yes, that Dutch Darren, designed a car that would fit the bill, but Harry J. Kaiser himself wanted a totally new car. Kaiser went to American Metal Production, who specialized in building frames and springs for car seats to design the car, and Dutch Darren would just add his flair to that design. The fins, Darren dip to the windshield, and belt line were all added by Dutch Darren. The Henry J was cheap, reliable transportation. It was built and designed with cost in mind. Lowest priced car with the fewest parts possible. It was available only in one body style, 2-door sedan. Windows were fixed in rear, no passenger side sun visor or flow-through ventilation. A lot of features were cut out to try to keep costs low. For its very first year, the car did not have external trunk access, much like the Nash Metropolitan. You had to go through the back seat to get access to the trunk. Sears Roebuck would get a version to sell in their catalog, which was called the Allstate, and it was available from 1952 through 1953. Let's talk specs. 174.5 inches long, 70 inches wide, 59.75 inches tall. It rides a wheelbase of 100 inches. It weighs 2,341 pounds. Projected price was $1,300, which would be equivalent to you spending $15,765.05 in the year 2024. Total 1951 Kaiser production was 145,031 units, of which total 1951 Henry J was 38,500. Moving on to engines, 134 cubic inch displacement flathead, inline 4, supersonic 4, 2.2 liters. It was good for 68 horsepower at 4,000 RPM, 114 pound-feet, or 155 Newton meters at 2,000 RPM with a bore of 3.125 inches and a stroke of 4.375 inches. Compression 7-to-1. When backed with a 3-speed manual transmission, 0 to 60 could be had in 19.9 seconds with a theoretical top speed of 70 miles per hour while achieving an average 25 to 30. Ads claimed up to 35 miles to the gallon if you drove conservatively, which is pretty impressive, all things considered. There was also another engine if you got the deluxe model. That was the 161 cubic inch displacement supersonic inline 6, 2.6 liters. It was good for 80 horsepower, 3,800 RPM, 125 pound-feet, or 170 Newton meters at 2,000 RPM with a bore of 3.125 inches and a stroke of 3.5 inches. When backed with a 3-speed manual transmission, 0 to 60 could be had in 17.6 seconds with a theoretical top speed of 78 miles per hour while achieving an average of anywhere between 20 to 25 miles to the gallon, maybe more if you drive conservatively.
Good evening, everyone. This is Rex Marshall, welcoming you on behalf of the nearly 3,000 Kaiser Fraser dealers from coast to coast. You know, friends, it is a fact that the Henry J is America's #1 buy. It's #1 for economy, and I'm here to tell you that it's #1 for ruggedness, too. Henry J is designed and engineered to stand up under the roughest punishment. Even this concrete pretzel bender can't twist the body or throw it out of line. The Henry J's doors fit smoothly. Not a bolt out of line, not a joint out of kilter. Yes, sir, it's been proven on the testing ground, proven on the road. The Henry J is America's #1 buy. And incidentally, I want to point out to you that with just an average trade-in, you can own the Henry J for as little as $34 a month. And what's more, you can drive it for only a penny a mile for gasoline. So don't wait, will you? Pay a visit to your Kaiser Fraser dealer tomorrow and drive the amazing Henry J for yourself.
Let's talk styling. The headlights, they protrude from the rest of the car. Thick headlight bezels. Also notice how curvy everything is. Running lights and or turn signal indicators. This car has aprons covering the bumper brackets, which is super interesting to see on a car at this price point. And it's only on the sides. The middle is left naked. Bumper has 2 bumperettes and or overriders. The bumper comes to a peak in the center. Also notice the grill bar in the center of the grill. It's horizontal and vertical, and the hood opens around it. Henry J in cursive on the hood. Hood ornament. Also take a gander at the hood lines. It almost looks like a baby Tucker, in my humble opinion. Just think of like where that vertical grill bar goes as the middle headlight for the Tucker. Fenders have a belt line. I wouldn't really say it's a belt line crease. It's just like a belt line. Fenders are flared slightly. Interesting reverse curve in the front. And reverse curve might not be the right word, but it has like this boomerang line in the very front of the wheel well. It's a very interesting design choice. There is no cowl vent on this car. Front glass is huge with bright trim around the window. This car does have drip rails that starts at the base of the windshield and runs the length of the cabin of the car. Side mirrors are mounted on the door just below the vent window. Rear fenders have that same reverse curve, which isn't probably the right word. It almost looks like a crescent moon, like Darren dip. The fin profile on this car is rather unique. The fins are uninterrupted. Taillights are on the back bodywork as opposed to on the fins. Rear bumpers retain that simplistic design with 2 overriders and or bumperettes. Gas filler is on the passenger side. This car does not have an external trunk. You have to get inside the trunk. Trunk access is only accessible through the back seat, just like a Nash Metropolitan. There is also an apron in the rear covering up the bumper brackets that goes the whole length instead of just on the sides. So this door has fully framed out door. Just take a look at this door panel material, armrest, as well as door handle to pull the door shut, door handle to get out, window crank for the big window, vent window. Coming down inside the pedal box down here, have the high beam switch, clutch, brake, gas pedal. Just take a look at this interior. Here's what over the hood would look like. Here's what first person over the hood would look like. On to the button switches and knobs. Interestingly enough, the lights out front are turn signal indicators. This car has a turn signal indicator stock that says full emergency, starting from the left and moving right. Starter button, aftermarket gauges for oil pressure and amp meter, headlights, choke, gasoline gauge, oil pressure warning light, 100 mile per hour speedometer, which is a square. This might be the very first use of a square speedometer. Can you think of a car that came before this that used a square speedometer? Odometer, coolant temperature, amp meter warning light, key, overdrive, air vent, handbrake, ashtray, lighter, heater is under the dash. Up above there is one sun visor for the driver. Rear view mirror. Taking a real quick gander under the hood, 6-volt battery. This car is the deluxe model because it has the Supersonic 6. Downdraft carburetor, massive oil bath air cleaner, dual horns which are mounted to the firewall. On the positive side, this is a rare car. It's a bit ironic because these were intended to be mass produced. There just isn't that many around anymore, and there's really not that many around anymore that haven't been molested. People like to take these and turn them into gassers for some crazy reason. Great gas mileage when driven conservatively, up to 35 miles to the gallon with the 4-cylinder. A lot of cars nowadays, even with direct injection and computers, don't get 35 miles to the gallon. Reliable engines against it. Most of them have been chopped and molested into funny cars with rally bars. Like the Liberty ships, they wasn't made to last forever. A lot of them got neglected and they're just not around anymore. Can seem a bit underpowered, said to have a choppy ride, rust prone. All right, now it's time for Would You Rather. 2 scenarios today. In the first scenario, would you rather have a 1951 Crosley or 1951 Henry J or 1951 Nash Rambler? I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. On to the second scenario. 1952 Willis Arrow or 1951 Henry J or 1951 Studebaker Champion. I'm going to leave this here for a minute. If you need more time, feel free, pause the video. On to Name That Tune. First person to give both the name of the band, song title, and the lyric that comes next will have their comment pinned to the top of it. Baby, baby, I'm aware of where you go. So looking for the first person to give both the name of the band, song title, and the lyric that comes after that. First person to do that will have their comment pinned to the top of the comment section. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. Oh yeah, Dennis got the previous Name That Tune. For whatever reason, YouTube doesn't like Dennis. I pin his name to the top of the comment section and it just disappears. But he got it. It was the Beach Boys Don't Back Down. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. If you'd like to get in touch with me, shoot me a comment in the comment section below, or shoot me an email at what_its_like@yahoo.com. Thanks again for making this a car community. I appreciate everything that you guys bring. Enjoy the after party. Until next time, toodaloo!